Have you checked out our YouTube channel yet? That's where we upload video reviews of the latest TV shows and movies, stream gaming content on occasion, and recently, we've started doing in-depth video essay analysis. We have a goal to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we need your help to get there. We'd like to celebrate by doing something special for all of our subscribers if we hit this goal. And we'll rely on you to help decide what we end up doing. To find us, simply search @TheBorough on YouTube. Make sure to not only subscribe if you like the content, but to give the video a like and ring the bell to make sure you receive notifications when we upload or go live. TBR Media is your movie refuge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Into the Borough podcast here on TPR Media's network. My name is Jared, your host, and today we have got a very special episode for you because for the first time in 6 months, Linda is going to be joining me to talk about all of our favorite horror films from this year as we look forward to the upcoming releases in September and October, and then the Eli Roth movie in November, of course, called Thanksgiving. So it's a packed episode. Me and Linda have a huge discussion on it. I hope you enjoy it. If you like this podcast, make sure to rate and review on whatever podcast platform you prefer. It really goes a long way in the algorithm, helping us get discovered by new people, horror fans, movie news fans, and we really appreciate the support. So without further ado, let us break down the year of horror in 2023. Hello, everyone. We have got a very special video for you today. We have Linda joining us again after 6 months. It's been so long. Long.
Yes, it has been so long, and we've got so much to talk about, which makes it very exciting, though.
Yes.
Yay!
So we are going to be doing like a horror roundup of sorts. So everything horror that is from this year, we're going to be talking about briefly. We might miss a couple of things. Don't hate on us, but we are going to be talking about a lot of it and even discussing what we may potentially be excited for upcoming in this year. There's a lot of good horror this year. Things have been... It almost seems like more consistent this year than most with the horror content, and not just the horror content that's been on streaming. I'm talking about theatrical releases. We've gotten so many of them. Quick side note, I don't know if you know anything about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. I don't know if you were following that at all. But
I have heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's from the same publishers, Ilphonic, as the Friday the 13th game. And so that was really exciting for us to come out just in the last week. It's been out for not even a week yet. I have played a little bit of it. At some point, we might post the clips of Wren playing it because I literally forced her down on the couch to play the game. And she was not enjoying it. She was very, very scared. So,
oh my gosh.
But we have a lot of horror here. So kind of how this is going to work, we're going to talk about some of the past releases, our thoughts, our overall opinion of horror this year, and then we're going to look at upcoming releases, and then we're going to dive into our faves and our most anticipated. So it should be a pretty smooth discussion. Something that we are going to do here is we're going to be trying to go in release order, things that were around the time chronologically that they would have, come out. And so I guess that leaves us with starting with just your overall thoughts on the year so far. Has it been a good year for horror? Has it been a bad year?
Oh, I think it's been a good year. Most of the horror movies that I've seen that have come out this year, I've really, really liked. And this was the year that you and I have both been waiting for, with like Scream coming out and Evil Dead Rise. There were a lot of things we were excited about, and so far I haven't been very disappointed. So I'm very optimistic for what the rest of the year has in store.
Yeah, no, I am too. I am too. So, I guess then to start, we had a couple of releases earlier in January. We had Megan, and then we also had Infinity Pool. Now, Infinity Pool, let me just start with that because I don't think you saw it. It was directed by Brandon Cronenberg, so coming off of Possessor, which was his last feature film. Brandon Cronenberg is someone who, very much like his father, is obsessed with body horror mostly. And so Infinity Pool had a really cool concept. It centered around, basically like people and their clones, and are do you even know if you're the real person? And like, it was a cool concept. We did a whole video essay, and absolutely no one saw that movie. So I don't blame you for not seeing it, because no one was talking about it except for us. And overall, it was fine. It was a cool concept, and there was some class kind of ideology running through that film's script, which placates to a lot of the discussions that we have culturally here in the States with, the rich and the poor, and the rich getting richer and that kind of thing. And so it
Yeah.
delves into a lot of that. Basically, that sense of rich people just being reincarnated because they can, and they can afford it, and they love doing it. And then everyone else kind of just gets to die and not have any fun with it. So
Oh.
that movie, it was interesting, but not necessarily great. Megan came out, pretty low expectations for a movie like Megan. We ended up both really liking it. And I remember when we were talking about it, we had mentioned the similarities between that and Child's Play from 2019, which I still think, I don't know if your opinion has changed. I still think that Child's Play is the better movie.
Oh no, I remember specifically going on a rant about just the similarities between the two, and just like the irony of the fact that everyone was like basically shitting on Child's Play when it was released, and then when Megan was released, everyone was like, "Oh, this is great." And it's like, really? Because it's already been done. Like it. I stand by my original statement, and I am still low key pretty bitter about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I was right.
Do you think that Megan was a good jumping off point for the year of horror? Do you think that that set the tone and set kind of a standard for the releases that we've been getting thus far?
I would say yes. I mean, it's streaming right now, and it's still critically doing very well, and people are still enjoying it very much. So I would say it is a very good starting point for the year. I think it was kind of a it was a small start with some of the horror movies that came out after it. They were a lot, bigger and
Yeah.
with more gore and in your face and everything. But I mean, it was still really good, and I think it did kind of set us off with the right tone.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree too, largely. Um, the next thing that we had come out earlier this year was probably our most anticipated horror movie of the year, maybe of the past 5 years, even. Um, uh, Maybe for me anyway. But that was Scream 6. And Radio Silence did a really good job with Scream 5 and just reintroducing the old legacy characters and bringing back that kind of fun slasher film that's super meta, working on multiple levels. They
Mm-hmm.
maybe, a lot of the big criticism for Scream 5 was that they went too meta. Scream 6, on the other hand, completely uproots that. It still is meta, but it is a very snappy slasher film, and also really, really frightening. The set pieces, I think, in Scream 6 alone are some of probably the franchise's best. I think of, the ladder sequence, even the bodega sequence. All of that was really top tier level slasher stuff. Um, as of now, when we're talking about this, Scream 7 has been announced. Obviously, with the SAG strikes and the writers' strike, nothing is currently in production. They wanted to start production later this year and have a 2024 release potentially. but who knows if that's going to happen depending on the strikes. The interesting thing is Radio Silence, who directed the fifth and the sixth movie, are no longer going to be doing Scream 7. It is now in the hands of Christopher Landon from Happy Death Day fame. And at first, I was really, really excited about it. And then I started thinking, Happy Death Day tonally has a lot of similarities, especially to, I think of like Scream 4, for instance. But at the same time, like it's a vastly different franchise who really isn't that scary. How are you? I liked the energy of Scream 6, and now I'm kind of concerned about Scream 7's energy and tone. What do you make of all of that? From 2018 until present, we have been firm supporters of Patreon, but we've noticed over the years that our supporters really don't utilize all the perks we have to offer for various tiers. So, we wanted to make it easier to support our mission in cultivating a community of passionate media consumers and amplifying indie cinema. Starting today, we are excited to announce that you can do this by simply buying our team a coffee. The only exclusive item that will be made available to members is our podcast, Close Up. For just $5, the price of a cup of coffee, you can watch and listen to Wren and Jared talk about everything from life to the latest theatrical releases. Our membership options also get you producer credits on all of our videos and podcasts, access to our Discord server, and a merch discount of 15%. In addition, we've added wishlist items to the page to make it easier to help us upgrade critical equipment to produce quality content, and commissions to react and review to a piece of media of your choosing. This could be films, trailers, songs, anything of the such. This is the first of many exciting changes coming at TBR Media. We hope you will follow along for the journey. TBR Media is your movie refuge.
So, yes, I agree with you. Happy Death Day gave off some major Scream vibes because it had that same clever, witty atmosphere to it, and it was fun. It was a fun horror movie, just like the Scream franchise. And I do remember, I've only seen both of them. I think I saw the first one like twice, and then the second one only once when we saw it in theaters. But I do remember enjoying them both. So I don't think I'm as nervous as you. I think the directors from Scream 6 have, Scream 5 was rocky and I had my issues with it, but they definitely saved it with the sixth one. Oh god, I remember crying. I still want to cry when I think about that movie. I love it so much. But I'm not too concerned with it. I think they gave it a strong finishing point for the director of Happy Death Day to go off of. And I think as long as he kind of keeps that tone, but he can do it with his style. I don't really have a problem with that. I'm pretty optimistic about it. I think you might be more worried about it than I am.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's super strange because my recollection is I like that more than you do, especially the second one. Like Happy Death Day to You, I like it more than the first. And so for me to be worried and you not so much is really interesting, you know?
Just thinking about the way that the director did those two movies. I mean, it was still fun, and I definitely did enjoy them. I mean, obviously, I probably did have my faults with the second one, but I think going from Happy Death Day to the Scream franchise, I think he'll be fine. He'll be
Yeah,
fine.
it's a pretty logical jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, another thing too, their production title is, I think, called like Blackbird or something like that. It's something ridiculous or Blackmore something. Um, the whole point of the production title, though, recently there's been a lot of chatter that um, the Scream 6 film was the production title was Blackmore, and they took the Blackmore thing again for this upcoming film. And so a lot of people are like, well, Scream 7 is probably going to be set in New York again, which I'm very content with. Nice change of scenery. They have so much to probably do, which means that they're going to be back filming in Canada. And they'll probably be filming it whenever that strike ends and they can polish up the script, whatever kind of script that they have or whatever loose structure they were going for,
Yeah.
because it's also not clear whether the same writers are going to come back or not. And from what I read, I think Christopher Landon is going to be both writing and directing. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff kind of going on behind the scenes with that movie that I'm very curious about. It's apparently because they're doing some type of Universal horror movie monster movie. The Radio Silence team is. They're working
Oh,
on
I did
something.
read something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they are prioritizing that project, which I
Yeah.
get, but
They kind of botched the whole idea of making the Universal monsters back into a thing with the
Tom
Frankenstein
Cruise.
movie and the
Yeah.
Mummy. And I mean, if they want to put their energy towards that, I can't really stop them now, can I?
But then again, I liked The Invisible Man, and that felt
Okay, I'll give you that. That was a great
different.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll have to see what happens with that. The next movie that we had come out was in April. So, just shortly, like a month after Scream 6, we had Evil Dead Rise, which, oh my God. Oh my God.
We should have done a review on that. We really should have.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of dropped the ball. I did one alone, but we didn't ever get together for it. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on it. Obviously, I really liked the film. I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it as much as I did. For you, who had really high expectations for it, did it meet, exceed, or fall short of your expectations?
I loved it. I loved it as much as I thought I would. I love that movie so much. I've seen it at least 3 times since it came out. I love it. It's just it's so gory and
Yeah,
intense, and the special effects were so cool. And being an Evil Dead fan, seeing all these different callbacks to the other Evil Dead movies, I, I loved it so much. It was right up there with Scream 6. It was one of my
yeah,
favorite horror movies ever, if not of just this year. And I loved
yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I get you. I took Wren with me, who historically has not seen anything in the franchise at all, and she really enjoyed it. It scared the shit out of her. So, I mean, when you're that deep in a franchise and something still scares you about it, like, and
Mm-hmm.
is unsettling, you're doing something right,
Oh, yeah.
especially in the genre of horror. Because at a certain point, it's like, oh yeah, Ghostface, it's whatever, Freddy Krueger, whatever, and so I think that's the trick to any long running horror franchise, is to try and, thread that needle through more of a delicate balance so that you're still bringing all of the energy that people love from,
Mm-hmm.
the original or the sequel, and updating it, making it more modern, but keeping the integrity of the franchise. And I think Evil Dead Rise did that so well, so exceptionally well. I still haven't seen it again, so I've only seen it the one time, but
You need to
my
catch
God.
up.
No, I know. I gotta continue. I do. I do. I was thinking, because I'm going to be going on vacation here. I was thinking about, what movies I wanted to like download on the plane, if any,
This
because
one.
we have a several hour flight, and yeah, this might be it. This might make the cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I took my best friend Becca to see it with me, and she'd never seen any of the Evil Dead movies either. And so I was before the movie, I gave her like a quick rundown of the franchise. I was like, okay, you got like a good idea of it now, right? And she was like, yeah. And so we worked together. So we went and saw the movie. And then the next time I saw it at work, I was like, okay, now that you've watched the movie, I want you to understand all these pieces because they're like callbacks to the other Evil Dead movies. So I was like telling her all the different similarities. And I was like, oh, didn't you love it so much? And of course I loved it more, but I think I made sure that she appreciated it as much as she should.
Yeah, I mean, everything from that opening title card,
That
with the
title
drum.
card.
Oh
Oh,
my God.
that was the best title card ever. That was so
Yeah.
sick.
It was well done. It honestly might be one of my favorite title card sequences of any
So
genre of
good.
all time. Like it was just like I remember sitting there thinking, literally thinking in my mind, this is cinema. Like like the way, the technique, everything that was, the editing, the sound, like all of it just firing at 10 out of 10.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect. Any horror movie that makes a horror movie geek out like this, it's a good freaking movie.
And it's
Everything
so
from
funny.
the title card to the intro to like the main plot itself and then the ending just going 360 back. Oh, so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. And bloody. If blood's your thing, this is it.
So bloody.
This is it.
Oh, so good. I love
Um
that movie so much.
So I think the next one that I'd seen after Evil Dead Rise was Sick. Uh, the writer on Sick, for anyone who's wondering, is indeed Scream's Kevin Williamson. And so that was a pleasant surprise for me. I knew that, I think I knew it going in, but then I was watching it and I was like, oh, who wrote this? Kevin Williamson. um, and so it was kind of this streaming movie that just came out and just landed on Peacock randomly. And it came out in January, but I didn't see it until I think after Evil Dead Rise, and then I saw it. It was it's a fast movie. It's only an hour and 20 minutes, and when I tell you that it blows by, it really does. And it reminded me a lot of Host from 2020 or
Host was a
2021.
good
I
one.
forget. Yeah, it just had that breakneck energy where it was basically like, yeah, here's the movie, here's what we got, enjoy. Like, and there was nothing extra about it. There was nothing lacking necessarily. It had probably one of the best like chases. It felt like what Kevin Williamson is known for, which is the chase, you know, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of what that movie is. And so it, honestly, it's not the best movie, but it was a really amazing surprise. And also the film's plot takes place, you know, shortly after the pandemic, and so you have the whole quarantine story thrown in there. So it's very much a COVID era film, which is I think why I liken it to something like Host, which, you know, they're both born out of that.
Yeah.
I think the main antagonist, their motivation is ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, but for the movie itself, it worked really well. So
Okay.
um, and then we just get I know Skinamarink came out. It's at some point. I think that was March or April. It might have been around the time Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah,
And you watched Skinamarink.
I did.
I watched Skinamarink,
You did.
and I don't really have anything else to say about it. Like, it's just one of those movies that like it exists to create atmosphere and atmosphere alone. And I think on that merit, it succeeds, but it's nothing more than that, in my opinion. How did you feel?
The best thing that's come out of Skinamarink by far are the memes from
Yeah.
Skinamarink. I know after I watched the movie, I sent you a few and I was like, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those it is what it is kind of movies. I don't think it's a movie that you're supposed to understand, which I know some people will find so moronic, but you'd
Yeah.
understand if you actually watched it. I think the layout of it is very, very cool and experimental. I loved the feeling that you were literally just kind of walking through someone else's dream. And as someone
Hmm.
that suffers from sleep paralysis, that gave me that like really perfect feeling of unease and discomfort,
Yeah.
which call me a masochist, but I love that out of a horror movie. I
Yep.
really do because it's in such a good way. And but the plot in the film itself was just very, it was a very student film, and I don't really know if I'm actually saying that as an insult because it wasn't bad. It just, it is what it is.
Yeah. I have the same feelings that you do towards it.
Yeah, ask me to watch
um,
it again, and I'd probably say no, but
Yeah,
yeah.
right, right. And but I think like for what it was trying, because it wasn't trying to be the next biggest horror film by any means.
No.
Although the meme generation and the social media kind of community on Instagram and TikTok specifically latched onto that film, and it boosted it. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
boosted its viewership and everything. And I don't think that that was the intent. I think the intent for the filmmaker, he filmed it in his childhood home with a few of his old toys. And all of it was just meant to be like this dream like, whole entire sequence, nightmare
Yeah.
fuel kind of film. And that's exactly what it is. It's slow. It's not necessarily methodical, I would say, because it doesn't really have, it's kind of aimless. And excuse me, and being aimless is like, you know, probably okay for a horror movie because like a lot of it's just supposed to be how does it make you feel, and
Exactly.
that's why I say on the merit alone of atmosphere it works. Outside of that, there's not much to it. I do think it merits maybe one watch for especially for genre fans. I think if you're a fan of horror, I definitely think you should try and sit through it. But I know a lot of people couldn't. They turned it off after like 20 minutes and I get it. It's super slow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it reminds me of that movie that we watched during the film festival, Come True. Because that one
yeah,
also had a very dreamlike atmosphere, and
yeah,
that one also gave you a sense of discomfort as well. But I completely
hmm,
agree with what you said earlier. It's not really a movie that you're supposed to leave like to think about it. It's more about how you feel afterwards. That I think was kind of the main general thesis of that film, and it worked. You know, you do feel a lot of different feelings, and it kind of just leaves you uncomfortable, and that's great.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's all I have to say on that movie because
Yeah,
it is what it is.
there's nothing else to it.
We also had a new movie from M. Night Shyamalan earlier this year with Knock at the Cabin. I saw it. You didn't see it. I
I'm over
don't
M. Night Shyamalan, no
No, I
offense.
totally hear you.
Yeah.
Old, however, is an instant classic in my mind. And for me, Old is actually like it feels the most true M. Night Shyamalan, where you're getting that mix of like what made him blow up, but also like the uniqueness to the
Mhm.
stories that he tells. Um, they shoehorn in a plot, and a basically like this whole like explanation in the last 5 minutes of every M. Night Shyamalan movie, and like that's annoying every time, no matter where it is. But Old had a lot of fun, as where Knock at the Cabin wasn't really fun, and it was
Oh.
kind of just this experience of watching Batista actually work like and be an actor, which is crazy. If you are only familiar with Dave Batista from like the WWE, for instance, then you really don't have a good grasp, or even playing Drax. I don't think people have a good grasp on the actual talent that he has. We saw it for a 7 minute sequence in Blade Runner 2049 at the beginning of the film. Here he's given a lot of reins to just act and perform, and that by far for me was the most interesting thing about the movie. But it's an apocalyptic story. The world's going to end, and we have these disciples who are going to have to make a hard choice and put a family in a very uncomfortable situation because the world is going to end. And that's a really cool premise. It takes the cabin in the woods thing and kind of turns it on its head, with a lot more religious undertones through it. So it was kind of unique in that sense. But for me, it didn't really land. And the film ultimately just wants you to question whether or not what the disciples, including Dave Batista, if what they're saying is true. And so if that doesn't sound like an interesting premise to you, then there's nothing
Yeah.
there for you.
I
But
I had a friend watch it, and yeah, she told me it was probably worth checking out, but I just M. Night
been burned too many
Shyamalan.
times. Yeah.
Yeah. And old, I didn't hate old as much as I thought I would, but it was still just kind of like. Eh.
I've never had so much fun, because I was working at the theater when Old came out,
Hmm.
and we got a group of us to just go have a midnight screening at the end of the night, and like working your 12-hour shift and then going to watch that movie when you're tired and a little bit lethargic,
I could see that being,
hilarious. I was
yeah.
laughing. I mean, it's just so ridiculous, and I think that's what saves it. There's nothing like that really at Knock at the Cabin, or yeah, Knock at the Cabin, and so like it ultimately just feels like kind of pointless. It's a little bit more grounded for M Night, but like still like that doesn't. There's less uniqueness in Knock at the Cabin than there is in Old. So that's what you can expect from that movie. And then we went a while without any like horror movies, and obviously there are probably a few on streaming that neither of us have watched that totally flew under the radar. I don't know if there's anything that you've seen in particular from this year before we move on to the more recent films. Um,
I don't know if you'd consider it a horror movie, but I watched The Menu with Anya Taylor-Joy and the guy from Harry
Ray
Potter.
Fiennes,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I watched that one quite recently, actually. I feel like that'd be one that you would like, actually.
I did watch The Menu. I didn't put
Oh,
it on here. I saw it
did
last
you
year.
like it?
I loved it. One of my favorite movies
As
of
very
last year.
nice.
Yeah, I fucking love that movie. I
That
love it
movie
so much.
screamed Jared, so
Yeah,
with all of
yeah,
its like underlining meanings and yeah,
yeah.
classism and all that fun stuff.
It's like when he asked her, when the chef asked one of the characters whether or not she has any student loans, because at that point they're like, without spoiling too much, they're like, obviously they're going to this fancy establishment and none of them are going to make it out. So at one point, and you can gauge that from the trailers, the trailer tells you that.
Yeah.
But at one point, one of the characters asked, like, she's like basically pleading to get out of the situation. And he's like, okay, like, let me ask you something. Do you have student loans? No. Okay, well, then you're going to die. Like, and it's like, okay, like, that's
Yeah.
very explicit in its thesis as a functional film. It has a tone and a sense to it that I find really intriguing, and it's super unique to the marshmallows, the I mean the burger,
The
everything in
burger
that movie.
scene, yeah.
Yeah, and we had just got done watching the newest Iron Chef on Netflix, and Dominique Crenn was one of the like chefs on that show, and so Dominic Crenn actually like was the one that was consulting with the film for the actual food that they were making. So
Oh
they had real chefs
yeah.
in there crafting those menus, and like so it all felt just so authentic, and it felt like movie magic. In the same
Mhm.
way that Evil Dead Rise felt like that, I think the menu definitely did as well.
Yeah, I remember them saying that they like made sure that everyone was preparing their dishes exactly how they would in real life, and it kind of makes me wonder if the marshmallow scene is the same too theoretically.
I guess there's only one way to find out. We got to
Like, is
try it.
that how a chef really would have done it? If that's what he was planning on doing?
Right, right. Yeah, it was such a cool movie. Other than that, though, like I haven't really paid attention to anything on streaming. Now that the release calendar is back in somewhat full force, although the strikes will probably throw that off real quick.
Yeah.
But it felt like we were finally back to normal on some level with a couple new releases each week, and so like I had stopped watching too much on my TV and was actually going to the theaters a little bit more. And so, yeah, I probably missed something in there, but you guys can let us know if there's something that we should be keeping our eye on. There's so much great horror, especially from indie filmmakers,
Hmm.
Shudder. Like, I can't tell you when the last time I actually logged on to Shudder was.
I
So,
know, me neither.
but I hear, they keep the great content coming, so it's definitely worth it, especially if all you watch and all you pick apart, is horror, then I think you have to have Shudder. So if there's something on there that we need to know about, let us know. And then we get to the recent movies. So I guess we should talk first about The Blackening real quick. The Blackening was something that me and Wren had, went to the theater and watched. I didn't know what to expect from it, and ultimately, like my expectations were so low. But essentially, it's a cabin in the wood again, except it's like a game of Jumanji, but like in a horror kind of setting. And it's super like on the nose about everything that it's doing. It's way more meta than I would even say most horror movies are, although it seems to be, a more recent trend of them just taking the meta-ness and turning it and dialing it to a full 10 rather than leaving some room for subtlety. So there's no subtlety in this movie, but it has a lot of fun. So ultimately, like I think, like if you're looking for, a movie to just throw on with your friends and have fun, I think this is the movie for you. It's directed by Tim Story, and it has a huge cast. Melvin Gregg, Grace Byers, Jermaine Fowler. Like I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. And Jay Farrow's in it as well. So if you're a fan of SNL from back in the day when we were growing up, Jay Farrow is also on. So
Okay.
yeah, The Blackening was interesting. And then the other one that I recently saw too was Talk to Me.
Oh, how was it?
You should watch Talk to Me. I don't know if it's quite going to be up your alley, but I think you'll like it significantly more than something like even Hereditary. I don't, but I think you would.
Okay. Because, yeah,
Um,
trust me, it's not for a lack of trying. I do really want to see Talk to Me. I can't make money watching it, but I can make money going to work. So, unfortunately, decisions have to be made.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
is on my watch list. I really want to see it because, yeah, so many people have recommended it to me, which I appreciate, but also hate 'cause it's just a reminder that I haven't yet. But it
yeah.
looks like I would enjoy it. I've heard it's like very unsettling and creepy. It's very tense. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is there like a whole lot of gore in it?
N- I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot of gore. There's definitely a couple of practical set pieces that they have that are really disturbing. Um, Joe Bird kills his role, man. Like, I mean, if we're talking about a young up and coming horror star, I think it's Joe Bird. And I think what he is tasked to do with in this movie is so fantastic. And he does it in a way that feels authentic to the character itself. So you never break that immersion with the character. And yeah, no, it definitely has a couple of practical scenes in it that make your body squirm a little bit. And they're brutal, don't get me wrong, but it's not overly gory or overly bloody. Except for a few key moments. I have a problem with the end of that movie and where it ultimately goes. Connecting the dots isn't quite done how I would do it, but ultimately, a lot of people are calling it, the next cult classic. I don't quite think so. I think it's a really good movie. I'm really excited for what they're going to be doing with the sequel that was announced. I never watched Raka Raka. Their YouTube content is so it's made by Danny and Michael Filippo, who run a YouTube channel called Raka Raka, and they did like all this like special effects, like scripted content back in the day. And like that content is really good in hindsight, looking at it now. For those of you who are familiar with the YouTube channel Corridor Crew, they had the filmmakers on when Talk to Me came out in theaters, and they basically like broke down all of their VFX work leading up to the film. And they did some really, really impressive stuff back when they were just starting out on YouTube. And so I'm happy to see them have that success. I do think you would like it though. And I do think it definitely plays more on the Hereditary Midsummer A24 train than it does most other things.
I did prefer Midsummer over Hereditary because girl power. But I didn't hate Hereditary. I remember texting you actually when I was watching the movie because you wanted me to watch it so bad.
I did.
But I mean, I do like the groove of those films, so I am still definitely gonna check into it. I mean, yes, I'm a big blood and guts kind of gal, but I do have a special appreciation for the more atmospheric horror films that are out there as well. So
Yeah.
I'm still keeping it on my watch list. I do really want to watch it
You
still.
should. The reason that I think you'll like it more, it doesn't feel as niche as Hereditary does. Like Hereditary feels so niche. Like you have to be in the mindset to like that movie. And like some people just aren't built that way. This is a much more palatable film than either of those. Like this feels more true to like modern horror than even like Hereditary does,
Mhm.
in the sense that it's not trying to do too much. Like Hereditary went balls to the wall there at the end, you know? And this movie, it doesn't do that. And I appreciate it for not doing that. But at the same time, like, I just feel like there were moments there where they could have used a little bit more gravitas when they were trying to wrap everything up. Not saying that they had to go like I said, Hereditary or even Midsummer
Mhm.
and just go crazy bonkers at the end, but they could have done a little bit more to make it more enjoyable. And I feel like, but at the same time, like my theater audience was loving it. They were reacting out loud to it when I went to see it, and that's always fun. I always love those kind
I
of
do love a good
experiences.
reactive audience.
Yeah,
It's so much fun to
especially in
watch.
yeah, especially in a horror movie. I don't know how your theater was during Evil Dead, but ours was also the same. The same, like they were being loud. They were being like, "Oh hell no!" Like I mean, it was all of the things that you could think of were
My
coming out of
favorite
people's
one was
mouth.
probably Megan,
Mm,
especially with like the Megan dance scenes and her singing Titanium, and
the
just all of
titanium
us
moment.
just laughing together. That was a good bonding moment between me and a couple of dimly lit strangers in a room. So
Yeah, yeah.
I know at this point you've heard a lot about our website, theburrowmedia.com, but I wanted to share some of the content you can expect from us in case you missed it. On our site, you'll find podcasts, movie reviews, opinion articles, and more content covering all types of cinema. If you're looking for a review on your latest project, we've got you covered. Simply search theburrowmedia.com in your website browser, and you'll find us. As a company residing in Nebraska, we know how hard it can be to get your message out to the world, and we want to help. Find our contact page on our website and fill out the form. You'll also find a list of submission guidelines on the page. Not every submission will be accepted, mainly due to time restrictions, but we welcome all types of motion pictures. So what are you waiting for? Head over to the site now and check it out. TBR Media is your movie refuge.
That's basically like all that I've seen. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, it's like, basically Nosferatu's trip to where we pick up with him on, in like Nosferatu. It's a vampire tale. I I haven't seen it. I don't care to see it. I don't know what your thoughts are on it,
no.
but I just overall I heard it was kind of like like why does this even exist?
I don't understand why they made that when they're currently remaking Nosferatu.
Right.
I feel
With
like that
Robert
makes
Eggers.
no sense.
No, and it's not even like it's just anyone directing, Nosferatu. It's like Robert Eggers, and you've got a huge cast, like a huge cast in that
Mhm.
film. Like that is the film. That is the vampire film to watch. Um, and this one, it just feels like I can't even call it a cash grab because what an awful name for a movie title. They announced this. I want you to know. Back at CinemaCon last year, we saw the first footage of this, and like I sat there and I was like, "That looks so boring to me." And my opinion has not changed, even with all of the trailers, everyone talking about it. It just looks boring,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
don't think
looking.
people know what that is. I don't think people realize that it's a vampire film either. But
It
anyway,
kind of
go on.
looks like a Pirates of the Caribbean. Like I'm just looking at the film's poster right now, and it looks like it's coming straight from Disney. It looks like low key cartoony, kind of like how the Haunted Mansion movie's looking right now. Like kind of. it's looking a little goofy for
Yeah,
Nosferatu, even for
yeah.
goofiest looking vampire.
Right. Yeah. I just that's all I have to say about it,
Let me check out
unfortunately.
the rating on here. Where is the?
Oh, it can't be good.
It
It
says six
cannot be
point
good.
four. It's not bad.
I want to see what Rotten Tomatoes has it, or even Metacritic.
Oh my god, Rotten Tomatoes. I'm
I
sorry, I
would
don't use
imagine
Rotten
not good.
Tomatoes.
No, I get you. It has a 49%,
Oh, that's not good.
but the audience score is up at 75. So the truth of it is, it's probably not a bad movie. It's probably just mid, you know? And that's fine. Like, the one thing that I do like about it is the fact that you have someone who I absolutely love and like have wanted to see in more things for so long and has not been given the time of day to actually be in things and to show his talent from what I can tell, and that's Liam Cunningham,
Yeah.
who, if you've watched Game of Thrones, you would know. I really do like that actor. You also have Corey Hawkins, which hasn't been in hardly anything recently. There was a while there that Corey Hawkins was picking up some pretty heavy hitting roles, like Straight Outta Compton, for instance, or even Kong Skull Island. But then he kind of just fell off. And then I don't know how you say his last name, so forgive me. But David Dasmalchian, is that how you say it? Dasmalchian?
The
Do you know who
dot
I'm
guy
talking about?
from Suicide Squad.
Yes, exactly.
The dot
Uh,
guy.
right, and from Dune and The Dark Knight and Animals, like he's been in so much, and I do like that guy a lot.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, so it has an okay cast, but it's just it for whatever reason the marketing doesn't hit at all.
I was not even aware of this film's existence until you sent me the the
Yeah,
itinerary of this recording. So
yeah.
good thing
So
you said
that's probably
something, otherwise I would have never known about it.
right. And so then we come back to the last thing that has come out recently, and that is The Boogeyman. And I haven't seen it. I know very little about it. So the floor is yours.
So the boogeyman, it's basically about this already broken family that basically gets in the crosshairs of the curse of the boogeyman due to the father of the family taking on a patient whose family was basically butchered, and the curse ends up clouding over this family and affecting especially the youngest daughter. And it's just figuring out the mystery behind the boogeyman and how to stop him. And my the only word that keeps popping up whenever I think about this movie is boring. It was
Ooh.
Yeah, it was boring. I appreciate the storyline, and I definitely appreciate some of the atmosphere of some of the scenes, because it does what most boogeyman centric films do, which is keeping the scenes pretty dimly lit, letting you kind of jump at shadows, and they do that pretty well here. It's just the creature itself and the characters, they don't really they don't really do anything for me. They're kind of bland, and they make those typical decisions that drives you nuts when watching a horror film. It wasn't a bad movie by any means. It just, especially after watching films like Scream 6 and Evil Dead Rise this year, and then coming down to something like The Boogeyman, you want more, and you're just not really getting much out of it.
Hmm. That sounds very similar to my feelings of in 2021, I think, The Night House. Do you remember The Night House?
I don't think
It
we
had,
did the Night House. We did the Lighthouse together, but not the Night House.
yeah, no, I just didn't know if you had seen it.
No, it looked
But The Night
really.
House had Rebecca Hall and Sarah Goldberg in it. And same kind of thing. It was, more atmosphere. The reason I bring that up is because even the color palette of that movie seems very similar to
It
The
is.
Boogeyman, and it just feels distant. And same thing with the characters and everything. It just felt so like untangible and like something that you can't latch onto. As with things like Scream 6 and Evil Dead Rise and Talk to Me,
They're
those are films where you
exciting. They're
can,
fast
yeah,
paced. In this
yeah,
one,
right, and you can connect.
you're kind of in the lazy river, and you want to go down a slide.
It's not where you want to be in a horror movie. It's really
No,
not the lazy
you're just
river.
laying there
Not
waiting
at
for
all.
something to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate because we were talking about Host earlier, and it's from Rob Savage, who directed Host. And so you would think that coming off of such a critical darling, that he might be able to draw up something that no one else has seen before, just like he kind of did with Host. And so that's kind of disheartening to hear. Yeah, I had wanted to see it just because of Rob Savage, but ultimately, like, I didn't get around to it. But it sounds like I might have been okay not getting around to it.
I think the reason why it might have been so lackluster for me is because, first of all, it had a lot of promise. Like when watching the trailer and reading the plot, you kind of expected maybe like a few more jump scares, something a little bit more fast paced and intense, and it just really didn't deliver to me. And I feel like, in a sense, Lights Out was pretty similar to Boogeyman. It's
Mm,
That's the only movie I can think of to compare it to. Like, I know there's another Boogeyman movie. This one was pretty far off from that one. From, I think that was like 2005.
yeah, it was a while
But
ago.
yeah, and Lights Out was a lot more similar to this, but I really enjoyed Lights Out. So I feel like if you're looking for a movie like that, I would pick that one instead.
Mm, good, good. Yeah. Well, there isn't too much left this year. We have The Nun coming out on September 8th, and I'm not excited for that. I fucking hated The Nun. Like,
That
hated
was
it.
our
It was
first
garbage.
movie together, and we both hated it.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate. It
It
just
was.
did not live up to how fucking scary that character was in The Conjuring. Like that first time, like, oh my god, like
Mhm.
it was, you have obviously a religious undertone. Religion scares a lot of people. It just does. And that's why you have movies like The Right with Anthony Hopkins, which is also an awful movie. And you have things like The Exorcist. And, so there's a right way to do it and a wrong way. The characters were so unlikable in The Nun. And, and it wasn't scary was my main problem.
Oh yeah,
So,
they try to take the ending from that movie to incorporate to a a certain scene in The Conjuring without
yeah,
spoiling it for anyone who still
yeah,
hasn't seen it
it's
after
been
all
a
these
while.
years. Yeah, and I remember us having a problem with that because that just like didn't make any sense. I think it was like both timeline wise and casting wise, it just did not fit very well. They were trying too hard to squeeze the end of that into the scene in The Conjuring, and we had a big problem with that. But yeah, also it was just not good. There wasn't enough of the nun, and like you said, the nun is already a very scary character, and I feel like not enough focus was put into that character, which is
No,
funny
not at all.
because it's the titular character, and there wasn't enough
Hmm.
focus on them.
Hmm. And you know what the weird thing is? I'm getting the same vibe from the trailer for The Nun 2. Like it's not exciting. They try and do that painting gimmick again, but with the magazine covers.
Conjuring 2 already did that.
Exactly. And they did it much, much better
Try
than what's
again,
shown in the
nun.
trailers. Right. And like,
She's like, that
oh,
worked out so well. I'm gonna do it again with this one.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And like I just could not care less about this property at this point. Like I just the past couple of Conjuring films and the
I
spin-offs,
know.
Annabelle Creation was fine.
I liked
You know
Annabelle
that
Creation and even Annabelle Comes Home. I liked both of those, but I hated Annabelle and I hated The Nun. And I wasn't a huge fan of The Devil Made Me Do It.
No, I wasn't either. It was boring. It's such a problem when your horror film is boring. Like they're
Like,
they
come
should
on.
not be. At the very least, even like the worst thing that you could ever imagine for a horror film. Like on the merit of being a horror film, you should at least have enough there to kind of keep people on edge a little bit. I think even as uneventful as Skinamarink was, it kept me on the edge a little bit
Yeah,
because atmosphere.
it
But it
had
had
a
none of
good
that.
tone to it. And this one,
Yeah,
you're just kind of waiting and waiting, and you're like, all right, I get it. She's a nun. Let's move on to the scary nun, though.
let's wrap this up. Yeah. Um, something that I didn't include on the list. I'm shocked that I didn't put that on. Insidious. I've
I was
totally
about to ask because I did see that.
Yeah. How did you feel about Insidious? Those two franchises
So
they're different, but they're
close.
very similar and closely
Yes.
related. And it's just, let's be honest, we all know why they feel similar, and people get them crisscrossed all the time, and that's your love.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk to us about the Red Door?
I don't wanna. I don't want to say anything.
Not good.
I wouldn't say it's not good. Okay, it was at this point. I mean, we all understand. I love Patrick Wilson. He is my darling, my everything, and I don't think it was his directing that was the issue. I think if anyone was going to take over that franchise, probably should be Patrick Wilson, especially since it's focused around his character and his family and being in the Insidious films. But it's not the same without Elise, though.
Yeah,
And I like the callbacks to our boys Specs and uh
I would have no idea.
help me. Hang on, I can get it. I can get it.
I haven't seen the last few Insidious movies.
I have seen every single Insidious movie. Um, Five Keys wasn't that great either. It kind of felt like they were just pulling stories out of their ass at that point.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, but uh, uh, Specs and Tucker. There we go. So yeah, Five Keys. It was an Insidious movie. You could tell it was an Insidious movie, but the main focus plot line of it didn't really follow the flow of the other of the previous films, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the main issue I had with this one, which I think is the main issue everyone's been having with this movie, is the lack of Elise. And we get like a brief cameo of Tucker and Specs in that one. Uh, but I mean, it dives into the further a little bit more. You get to go back, and it's fun watching the characters kind of explore in there a little bit more, especially when they don't really have much of a recollection of anything that's happened in the past. So that was fun to watch. It was just again pacing. The pacing was pretty slow, and it just didn't feel like a true to heart Insidious movie without the heart of those movies, which is Lin Shaye's character Elise.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. Well, yeah, that was also one that I just entirely missed, and so unfortunately, I would think that I would like to watch it when it comes on streaming, whenever it comes on streaming, but who knows? Because we have many other horror films still yet to come this year. Like we have Saw 10, which I got trashed on for
Yeah,
fucking.
what's your opinion on Saw 10 again?
Well, I just thought the trailer was kind of pointless. Like it feels like they've fucked the timeline so hard in this franchise
They
that I
have.
don't think the general audience even cares anymore. They're like, oh, it's a Saw film. They're just gonna go see it based off name property alone. But for me, the trailer just felt too generic. It was trying to evoke the feeling of Saw 1 and Saw 2, which I think tonally it hits. It's not interesting to me. I wanted to see what they were going to do to expand the franchise, but everyone just wants Tobin Bell back. It's the same problem that I had when people were freaking out when Nev Campbell wasn't coming back for Scream 6. Get
Yeah.
over it. Like, get over it. Like, at some point, you're going to have to just move on. I'm sorry. Like, you're going to have to move on.
Which Tobin Bell would you want back? The sick and dying Tobin Bell or the hats backward because he's young Tobin Bell?
Well, we're getting hats backward. So that's the Tobin Bell we're getting in this movie because it's taking place in between 1 and 2. And so that's fine. I just think, like, it's cool. It's taking place it's Saw is now international because they're in Mexico City or whatever.
Jesus.
And like it looks fine. I don't see an appetite for that movie. But clearly the Saw fans do because when I reacted to the trailer, they came after me for saying that.
Yeah, what dumbass puts their opinions on the internet? I mean, come on.
I know. Jesus.
That was your mistake number one right there.
Yeah.
I
God.
read those comments. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. The one about this guy's never seen a Saw movie before. Okay. You know what? Like, a lot of people give Saw 5 shit. And, like, I like Saw 5 because Hoffman just goes berserker, like, in that movie. Just off the wall, killing forensic scientists all over the place. Like, they're onto him, Or it might be, it's either 5 or 6. But I've seen enough of Saw to know and understand what's happening. Like, and so my confusion is I reacted to the trailer without knowing any plot point. So when we start off and I'm like, wait, where are they going with this? And people like what I'm going to react to it. Like recently I've been trying to make my reactions a little bit more real. So I'm actually reacting to it in live time without knowing very much. And like, yeah, so I tried to do that, and people were like, "Yo, he's an idiot. He doesn't even know when this is taking place." Okay, and then I said, this must be somewhere in between, before he died. So I caught on to it because intuition,
Good
but
job.
people are like unacceptable. Anyway, did you watch that trailer? You did. If you were looking at the comments, maybe.
Yeah. I watched it. I did. I was afraid of getting crapped on as well, so I read into it a little bit before I watched the trailer.
Smart move. Smart move.
Thank you. I learned from your mistakes. But yeah, I don't think we need. I mean, let's face it. At the end of the day, all Saw fans really care about are the traps. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
why else are we watching these? Come on, it's the traps.
Yeah.
This is a safe place. We can all admit it. All we care about are the Saw traps at this point, especially if we're on the 10th film. There's not a whole lot else that Tobin Bell's character can do.
Right.
So I'd watch it just for the traps, though, and I'm man enough to admit that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I watch it just for the traps too.
Yeah,
And
I don't care about the plot points. Like you said, they messed it up. It's so messy and weird and very inconsistent. But I'll watch it for the traps. I don't mind a little blood and guts on my hands.
yeah. Well, yeah. So Saw 10, it's coming out in September with The Nun. It comes out at the very end. And then we get into spooky season and we have 3 things here. We have Pet Cemetery Bloodlines. I could leave it, honestly.
I don't think they need to do that at all.
There's only one movie that I think is rightfully placed in this month, and it is not the popular franchise IP that we've seen before, Pet Cemetery or The Exorcist. The Exorcist doesn't look good either. I'm going to say it. David Gordon Green tried to do something cool with Halloween. While I overall like the vibe that he was going for, there are a lot of problems in that franchise. The most recent Blumhouse trilogy. And like The Exorcist, there's nothing for me stimulating about any footage that I've seen from that movie thus far. What about you?
I would probably watch The Exorcist before I watch Pet Cemetery, but
Fair.
I will agree with you. It looks like they're doing some weird stuff to it. Like, am I mistaken, or are they really trying to make their? Is there really going to be two of them? Why?
Yeah, because they're doing like a pseudo sequel like they did with Halloween 2018. So what
There
they're
weren't two
doing
Michael
here,
Myers.
right?
There's
But you
Oh,
would
I guess with
argue
Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends. Okay, okay, fine. But
where he's going here is his, I think in his brain he's like it's a sequel. We have to have two.
two.
Two. And like and that's whatever. Like it's fine. I sound pessimistic about it. My main problem is I just don't think it looks good particularly. I don't. It didn't really the original Exorcist is a movie that is scary. It's scary. And this doesn't feel scary to me. Like in the way that he made Michael Myers kind of scary again with Halloween 2018. I don't feel the same for this. I don't get good vibes from it. That's what I mean to say.
The vibes
It's
ain't
not
there.
passing the vibe check.
Dude, that guy would have had a field day with Bride of Chucky. Two dolls.
Both of them.
Both of them. I'd give it a shot. It's just very confusing and, in my opinion, unnecessary to have two possessed people. That just seems like too much for one
Yeah.
movie.
And I do like Linda Blair obviously will be there for 2 seconds in the movie. It's going to happen. We all know it. Um, and like I'm cool with that. I think it's a cool callback. What I worry about is specifically kind of like, do you remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Netflix produced one from 2022? Is that last year, 2021? Where
Yeah.
they like gave Sally Hardesty the middle finger. Like they literally were like, "Fuck this character." Like,
Okay, to be fair, she was in literally one movie and then came back, and she basically acted like she was Laurie Strode. Like, I've been fighting this guy for years. And it's like, you met him once on a bad, hot afternoon. Get over it. Move away. And I'm sorry if that's cruel, but Laurie, Michael Myers kind of put her through hell twice before the new trilogy showed up, if we're following that timeline. Sally, you didn't hear jack squat from her after the first one. So, in
yeah,
my opinion, calm the hell down and sit down.
yeah. And obviously, it wasn't the original actress because the original actress had passed, so it wasn't even that person. So it's very different than a Linda Blair situation. But I don't know. I'll probably see it. I don't know if I'll catch Pet Cemetery. I'm going to be completely honest.
Oh, the one that we reviewed was not good.
No,
It was
no, it was
not
not.
good. And
Nope.
did we not learn from the first time they released Pet Cemetery? They released the second one with Edward Furlong. I liked Edward Furlong, and I didn't even like that movie. So why are we making a sequel again? I don't think it's going to be very good. I'm calling it right now.
No, it probably won't. But the thing that is the saving grace for this October is Five Nights at Freddy's, and we
Yeah,
all know it. We
yeah.
all know it. I get excited thinking about that movie and just
And I found out that Matthew Lillard was going to be in it. I was right on
mhm,
board because at first I was kind of on the fence, even with Josh Hutcherson in it, which is
yeah,
very interesting because you don't really. Bridge to Terabithia and Hunger Games. They're basically the only two things that Josh Hutcherson is really known for, maybe
Yeah.
Zathura. So it's very interesting seeing him cast in that movie, and I was still kind of on the fence about it. And then they were like Matthew Lillard, and I was like, okay, let's go
You're
to the
like, all
movies.
right, I'm in.
He's a gem. Who doesn't love Matthew Lillard?
Yeah.
Come on.
No, I agree. That's really it. We have Thanksgiving coming out in November.
I,
Um, Thoughts? Because I have none.
uh,
Uh,
I did not think you were actually going to bring that movie up. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I thought you kind of put that down as a joke with the goodnight or goodbye Moon Man thing. So I did not think you were actually going to say something. I thought we were just going to not acknowledge that movie. So,
well, it's existing.
oh,
I don't know how much. I don't know how well it's going to do. Probably not well at all. Very little is known about what that movie is actually entailing. So I don't.
it's
I
got
don't foresee
Eli
it.
Roth, so you know it's going to be disgusting.
It's going to be disgusting.
It's going to
Yeah,
be so
and
disgusting.
yes, and it 100% will. I mean, I just I never got back to watching. Um, what is that movie that he did? Oh, I'll find it. I'll find it because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But it was he the one that did it. It was they went to this really remote place
Green
with these.
Inferno?
Yes, I
I
have
love
never
Green
finished that movie.
Inferno. Everyone
I
thinks
have
I'm the
never
most
finished it.
messed up person in the world because I'll talk
Yeah.
about scenes from that movie and laugh, and they're like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Have you watched it? I mean, come on."
No, I've not finished that. I have not finished
You
that
haven't
movie
even
yet. And
finished it? You got it. So
no,
it's funny.
I just it's funny.
In my
People were
opinion,
so
it's
mad at
kind
that
of
movie.
fucking funny.
Yeah, I just remember like the uproar about how violent it was, like it's Eli Roth, so like,
Yeah.
what you gonna do, Hostel. Um, and Hostel is still regarded as one of the most disgusting horror movies ever made. The scariest, even. A lot of people like call that back and say, yeah, that I remember being horrifying the first time I watched it. And so for me, like Thanksgiving is something to kind of like put on the back burner just because who knows what this guy's going to do. But at the same time, like, you know, it's not been marketed. It's not been really no information has been put out about it. Like you have to scour the web to find information about it. I found.
I feel like that's
So
very Eli Roth, though. He doesn't really like to release a whole lot about his films. He really likes the good old fashioned shock factor when it comes to his
yeah,
films.
yeah,
And
no, he does.
yeah, I mean, if you want to lose your appetite before Thanksgiving, because you know for a fact this movie's going to make you barf.
Yeah, no, probably.
Barf
But
is going
he's
to be
also
the
doing.
tagline.
Yeah, what I'm kind of like curious about because his last few movies like with Death Wish with Bruce Willis and like a few of the other movies he has not had a good solid film in the last few years. I don't think Thanksgiving's going to change that, but I do think Eli Roth directing Borderlands, which is in post production right now, that could be interesting. Taking that video game IP and then bringing it to the screen. I think his certain taste and style might lend itself really well to that universe. So we'll just have to wait and see what that does. But Thanksgiving, it's going to be awful. And
Oh,
and I don't mean it might not be a bad movie. What I mean is like,
it's
yeah,
going to be
probably,
something that's going to get banned in some
yeah,
country.
one, oh, probably multiple.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited.
But Uh, so that's the horror roundup for the year. We may or may not be able to record a couple of reviews for a lot of those things that we just talked about that are upcoming, but we wanted to give everyone kind of a sneak peek at our thoughts on everything that's come out this year. If you had to pick your top three favorite horror movies from this year so far, what would they be?
Oh, Scream 6, Evil Dead Rise, no doubt. Oh. Maybe Insidious. Between all these ones,
Yeah, right.
I'll
I
give it
know.
to Patrick Wilson because I can't really pick between the other ones. I'll save that until I watch Talk to Me because I feel like if I watch Talk to Me, it'll be Talk to Me.
It will for you. I have the same. I have Evil Dead Rise, Scream 6, and then Talk to Me. I I was looking at my Letterboxd list earlier this year because on Letterboxd I keep track of like my 10 favorite films of each year, not saying that they're the best, not saying anything, just saying that what I like the most, what I would rewatch the most, no matter the rating I gave it. The only horror movie from this year that made it onto that list, do you want to take a guess? I mean, I'm in a Ghostface shirt, just saying.
Oh, so it was Scream 6.
No, it was Evil Dead Rise. Um,
What the? You
that
tricked me.
that that is my number 5 favorite top film of this year out of everything, not just horror, out of everything. That has been in the back of my mind since I saw it. And like I can't unsee some of that imagery from that movie. And so for me, that is where it is. So we're pretty much on the same page with that. Out
Yeah,
of everything that we have left this year, we maybe have already explained it prior, but what is your most anticipated out of everything to come?
5 Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, same,
Yeah.
same.
What's your top three anticipated films? I want you to pick between the other ones for two more. Give me two more.
Yeah, I'll say okay. Here's what I'll say. I have to include obviously Five Nights. If I want to pick a movie to hate, I'm going to pick The Nun
I thought you were gonna
because
take it real personal and say Saw 10.
no, I'm going to pick Saw 10 as one of my most anticipated, though.
Okay.
Just because I want to prove everyone that was in my goddamn comments about what exactly the box office potential and success of that movie is going to
I'm
be.
so bitter.
Because, like, they were like, one of the comments was like, this guy was like, it's $1 billion franchise. And I'm like, yeah, they have 10 films. I would hope so. Like,
Oh, don't
I,
worry.
I
I saw the comments.
But anyway, like he's trying to tell me that Spiral blew out the box office domestically, and I'm like giving him numbers, and he's like, "Yeah, but internationally." And I'm like, "Really? Like $200
I was gonna watch
internationally?"
this video and he and Jared are just gonna fist fight. He's gonna be like, internationally, you me out back.
Yeah. Oh man, God, it was just so egregious. No, those are probably it. Although a part of me wants to drop off Saw and put in The Exorcist, just because I'm curious at where David Gordon Green's ultimately going to take that franchise.
Okay. I would say Five Nights at Freddy's, The Exorcist, and I guess The Nun too.
But I only put The Nun in there because I can't wait to hate on it. Like it's one of those movies for me. I'm trying to keep like an open mind, but like I don't think I can with The Nun because it was the same feeling that I felt with Winchester. Do you remember that?
Oh,
Helen Mirren.
Winchester was bad.
And I'm just like, why does this exist? Like you could have done a million and one things with this
Yeah,
movie and
there
this is
was
what you
no
chose.
reason for Winchester. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that movie's just kind of fallen off the face of the earth. I've never heard a single person talk about it,
No, I haven't
and for good
ever.
reason.
Yeah. It sucks for Helen Mirren. That was a cool role for her that got abused by the writers. Uh, um, yeah, no, I think that is pretty much all of my thoughts on this year of horror. Quick side note, me and Linda are going to be doing 2 episodes of Drunk Trivia. We're going to do a Christmas edition and a Halloween edition for December and October, respectively. So be on the lookout for that. Do you have any final thoughts on this year of horror?
It's it's been a very interesting year for horror, and I love it. And this is honestly a very wild list of upcoming releases. So I'm interested to see how
Yeah.
it goes because it's wild, and I'm
Yeah.
excited
That's
for it.
It's like I had mentioned earlier, it's been a very diverse year for horror, just the types of horror films. You have a lot of subgenres that everything's kind of hitting on this year. And so it's been nice. It's been refreshing to get a lot of different content in
Mhm.
one genre. I liken it to the comedies that we've gotten this year. They've all been so vastly different that it's just been refreshing. If you don't like one, you'll probably like the next. And that has been very much this year. The indie horror movies haven't come out as strong this year, I don't feel like. We really only had Talk to Me and maybe Knock at the Cabin and The Boogeyman that you could consider thus far like indie films. Everything else, has been on. Well, Megan too, I suppose. Megan probably had less than $20 million budget. But yeah, no. So it's been very diverse. I think I don't think anything will ever beat that time that we got like Suspiria and like Hereditary and like all of those films back to back
Mhm.
because that was just it was overloaded with my type of film.
The artsy
Like what you
fartsy
can
horror films.
right, yes,
Yes.
what you would consider Jared's taste. And so it's not been a year like that at all. However, like I think to cap it off, if there's one film out of everything released this year that you should watch that I would recommend, and I think you would probably agree, it would be Evil Dead Rise. As much as I love Scream 6, that there's
And
just
you know
something
what?
special.
Yeah, since you picked Evil Dead Rise, I'll go ahead and pick Scream 6. It was like
There
the
you go.
best birthday ever, and that movie was just the cherry on top of that day.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around for this whole thing. It's hard to cap, all of horror in 1 year in an hour and 10 minutes, but we managed to try and do it.
I feel like we did pretty well. Usually, a review about one movie takes this long, so I think we made
Sometimes.
pretty good time.
Yeah, we did. All right. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get this podcast. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 900. We're trying to make it to 1,000 by the end of the year. So if you could help us do that, it would be much appreciated for more great content. And without further ado, we'll see you in the next video or podcast.